Hey everybody, and welcome to r/TopPosts. Now this is not a real subreddit, but just a collection of some of the best stories I have seen on Reddit over the past week. All of these are absolutely amazing, so let's get straight into it. I finally did it. And even though the name may not say much about the post, and it might not have the most upvotes I've ever seen, this is probably my favorite post in terms of creativity. Yesterday, at about 2:30, I was shopping at my local smiley face box store. As I usually do, I stop and check their app to figure out what aisle stuff is on, since they did a reset a few months ago and I haven't yet become accustomed to the layout. While standing in the aisle searching the app, I hear a very loud throat-clearing sound. It was at that point I knew I had my opportunity to try a new tactic. We all saw how verbally obscene I've been in the past. This time, I was going to play it nice. For reference, this person has had quite a few encounters with Karens, and let's say, they all made for relatively good stories. This lady didn't look like the stereotype Karen. She had red highlights and curly hair. Let's call her Kay, and to be open, I'm wearing a green shirt with a Minecraft creeper on it. Excuse me, hey? No, there was no pauses. Her hand was on her hip, and her head was tilted in that I'm about to go off on you way that Karens get before threatening a manager. Yes? I've been waiting here for over 10 minutes. I cut her off mid-sentence. I felt a bit cheeky. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry you had to wait. Why didn't you get my attention sooner? Since you're here now, can you check the back for this Homedic foot spa? The app said you have one in stock, but the slot is empty. You're supposed to be helping me. I am? Well, I guess I can go back with you to check. I'm not exactly sure how that would work, but I'm game. Excuse me, you're the one who works here? Pretty sure I don't. However, judging by your blue shirt, you're the employee I requested 15 minutes ago. Do you have any idea what it's like to wait that long for an employee? Then have them lie and say they don't work here? I don't work here, you dumb butt. What are you even talking about? Well then why would you come up to a customer who's obviously waiting on somebody and then tell them you'd been waiting for their attention for 10 minutes? I didn't. Yes, you did. Now don't you lie to me twice. Do we need to get your manager up here? At this point, she lets out the loudest type of sound and walks out, mouthing something under her breath. I continued my shopping and ultimately checked out. Probably the most fun I've ever had diffusing a situation without the use of profanity and without an actual employee getting involved. This man just pulled the ultimate Uno reverse card on a Karen, and everyone take note, if a Karen ever attacks you in the wild, you don't run and hide, you just pull the Uno reverse card. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed that first post. Don't worry, there are plenty more to come, but could you just take a moment to smash that like button? And help me please, the almighty YouTube algorithm. But don't worry, we're getting straight back to the video. This next post comes from r/Today I effed up, and today I effed up by telling my son's new doctor we are anti-vax. My son has autism, level 1, previously called Asperger's, and due to that, he also has a psychiatrist, multiple psychologists, and doctors. We decided to get a new primary doctor who works closely with his other providers to better coordinate his care this past summer. I brought my son in for a standard well-child visit and spent nearly an hour with this new doctor going over his issues, any medications, and his history. Toward the end of a visit, she says to me, well, he can get the Gardasil vaccine today, to which I reply, oh no, he can't have that. I don't want him to get autism. I should maybe note here that I'm an Aspie too, and while I think my sarcasm is on point, I must have been a little too serious looking because she just stared at me. The silence lasted an eternity while I imagined she was deciding how to proceed. Eventually, I laughed and tried to assure her I was only kidding, but she only returned a nervous-sounding chuckle and left the room. As my son and I were discussing whether I was offensive, he thought I was hilarious. In walked the nurse with a stack of information about vaccines. He started his lecture about vaccine safety and potential risks, and no amount of my assurances that we're not in fact anti-vax would stop him. He just kept saying, oh, well, I have to tell you this, in a way that suggested that the doctor told him to give me the full spiel. And I guess that does make sense because as a doctor, you're responsible for your patient's health. And really, if something has even a grain of truth to it, then they need to investigate. And here's the next story from r/pro revenge. Made sure my ex didn't get his dream job. When I was a sophomore in high school, I was dating this guy. Let's call him Jack. He was this brooding guy in the Spanish class, and I was super into the whole mysterious, not talking to anyone, not caring vibe. Once we started dating, things were pretty cool. He was nice and funny, but he would make little comments all the time that just weren't okay. For example, I didn't like cursing back then, so he would say F. I would ask him to stop, and he would just say, "Why the F should I effing stop saying F?" Over the next few months, things got worse and worse. He didn't want me talking to boys, which I accepted as him just being a jealous boyfriend. But then, he didn't want me talking to girls either, because he thought I would badmouth him. When I talked to girls in front of him, he accused me of talking in code about him, even though I was only saying things like, "Oh, that test in math was hard, right?" Then came the emotional manipulation. When we would get into arguments, he would storm out of my house and cause scenes in front of my neighbors, forcing me to just agree to whatever he wanted, so that he would stop making me look bad in front of others. He would say things like, "Oh, if you loved me, you would do this." One time, I tried to break up with him and he ran to my house 10 miles away to make sure that I felt guilty enough to stay with him. Not long after all this came the physical stuff. He would throw things, hit me, he even punched a hole in my wall. That was fun trying to come up with an explanation for my parents. 10 months after we started dating, I finally ended it after he sexually assaulted me. I told my parents everything, and they made sure that I was able to break up with him without him guilting me into backing out. What I didn't realize was that during the sexual assault, he'd taken pictures. The next day at school, he threatened to show them to everyone. His friends, my parents, teachers, college admissions, everyone. I told one of my rather intimidating friends about it, and she made sure to put a stop to that. She ended up hunting him down, beating the trash out of him, and forcing him to delete the pics. She was the best, and I made sure to buy her a burger for that. He'd also lent me his graphing calculator for algebra, you know the ones that cost like $200. He told me he didn't want it back, but that he wanted the money to buy a new one. He also wanted $500 for all the pizza, dinners, and etc. that he'd bought me over our relationship. I said F that, bagged up all the stuff he'd lent me, and put it in his locker. When I got home that night, the bag was sitting on my front porch. I ended up driving to his house and giving the stuff to his parents, making sure to explain that while he bought me food, I also bought him food, so I didn't owe him anything. All of this is a long-winded way to say that this guy sucked. Fast forward about a year, I was in therapy, taking medicine, and doing much better after the entire ordeal. I hadn't spoken to him at all, and things were great. Then, I get a call from him. Now, Jack's dream was to join the Marines. He'd been training with a Marine recruiter for nearly 2 years, getting in shape, making sure he was up to standard to join. As much as I hated him, I have to admit that he worked his butt off for that. When Jack called me, he asked me to be a character reference for him. Why he asked me, I have no idea. After all the trash he did, you'd think he would have wanted me as far away from the recruiting people as possible. Nonetheless, he asked. So I did what any good friend would do, and I told him, sure, I'd be happy to be your reference. He said great and told me the stuff to say once the recruiting officer called. Stuff like, Jack's an upstanding person, very loyal, very strong, very hardworking. A great guy to have in the Marines. I said, no problem, and hung up. 2 weeks later, I get the call. Sergeant whatever asked me a couple of questions, like how did I know Jack, did I think he would be a good fit for the Marines, what kind of person he was, and etc. You better believe that I told that guy everything. I told him about the emotional manipulation, the physical abuse, the sexual abuse, all of it, in painstaking detail. The sergeant was pretty quiet through all of this, just listening, jotting everything down, I imagine. At the end of the call he asked, "Thank you for telling me all this. I'll be honest, that's not what I was expecting to hear, but I appreciate your honesty. That's not the kind of person we want in the Marines." I agreed with him on that point, and we hung up. Never talked to Jack again after that. Last I heard, he's working at Macca's, still in our podunk hometown. I guess my character reference didn't help him get into the Marines. Whoops. And as much as this is a bad situation, I really like the sort of completely oblivious, sneaky factor in all of this. Jack's got no idea why he failed getting into the Marines. And also, why? Why would he ask his ex-girlfriend to be a character reference? Alright everyone, I hope you enjoyed this installment of r/TopPosts, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel for lots more Reddit videos. Now, if you're a returning subscriber, let me answer some questions. I will probably start uploading quite a lot more rarely, and probably videos like these, where I just group together some of the best posts I've seen on Reddit. Don't know, I might get back to making more at some point in the future, but for the moment I'll stick to round about one video every week on just these sort of the top posts on Reddit. But with that said guys, that's it from me. I hope you all enjoyed, and all I want to do is see you all here next time. See you later guys.